Good evening, boxing fans, and welcome to another exciting edition of Enter the Ring Live with your hosts, Mighty Mike and
AJ Rage.
what's up, brother?
Doing good, bro, man. How you doing, man? Still trying to get over that war last night, man.
Man, I'm still catching my breath from that.
I was dreaming about it all night, dude. I mean, it was just, I don't think I've seen a fight. I'm going to be honest with you, bro. I haven't seen a fight that good.
It's been a long time. It was good for a different reason. It was, okay, in terms of excitability, I probably was a little bit more excited overall with the Zepeda-Baranchik fight, only because the ebbs and flows were so dramatic. But this one was just a steady, just steady excitement. Just every round was fantastic. There was no bad rounds. There was every minute of all 36 minutes. Let me start over. All 36 minutes of that fight were fantastic.
Absolutely. I think the thing that just really got me was just when the fight first started out, it almost kind of looked like it was going to be Estrada's night right off the bat.
I thought the same thing. And in the story I wrote, that's exactly what I said. He looked real strong in that first round. I said, oh, man, is Chocolatito not suited for this division?
Well, I think it was more like Estrada. He tends to have a little bit more, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but a little bit more of a street thug kid mentality. Gonzalez is very humble. You know, he's a lot like Alexis Aguero, his idol, who was a very humble, quiet man, and outside of the ring, but in the ring would change his attitude. And it was almost like, but I think I finally figured it out after all these years. It's not that Roman is disinterested; he's studying his opponent, and then at some point he turned it and started taking control of the fight.
Yeah. Obviously, for those of you, we're talking about the rematch last night, the highly anticipated rematch last night took place in Dallas, in front of a crowd. They announced a crowd at around 5,000. My friend Mike Montero was there. He said it was about 4,000 people in attendance, but it was a live crowd, a very, very heavily pro Estrada crowd, like 2/3 was pro Estrada.
But just to be anticipated, it's in Texas.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, but I saw that they actually even somewhat booed the decision as it was being read, because they probably, what we saw last night and what the scores, at least one of the three judges, what he saw was not indicative of what happened last night. That was a highly contested, highly skilled, toe-to-toe. Neither one of those guys hardly took a step backwards. The referee didn't really need to get involved at all. I know there was one point in the fourth or fifth round, he tried to warn Chocolatito for low blows, and it was like, what are you talking about? I mean, these guys were fighting clean. There was no little or no clenching at all. I mean, you see a fight like that, and compared to some of the fights that we've seen in the last several years, that they're supposed to be high profile. And we said this going into this fight this weekend in our episode last week. We said this is going to be a do not miss type of fight. Getting on the scoring really quick. So there've been some late developments. I mean, I don't know how you scored it. I actually scored it 114, but if I had to lean one way, I would say 115, 113 for Gonzalez. But as we all know, and everybody that saw that fight, one of the judges, the Texas judge, forgot his first name, but last name Sucre, he had it 117, 111, which equates to 9 rounds to 3 for Estrada. No way in hell did either one of those fighters dominate 9-3 over the other guy. That was literally could have been a pick'em fight. And if you look at sheer volume, punches landed and punches thrown, Gonzalez clearly landed more punches.
Yeah, he landed more
and landed the harder punches. So, the WBA's president, I think his name is Mendoza. He issued a statement. It just hit the press like within the last hour that this judge is now under review or temporary suspension. Is it just a move for, I don't know, for posterity's sake, or just to look like they're against corruption or something? But at the end of the day, this judge has a history in Texas of bad decisions. We were just talking about one earlier. Tell them about what we were talking about earlier.
Well, we were talking about the fight between Juan, Diaz and Paulie Malignaggi some years ago and stuff, in a fight that Paulie Malignaggi clearly won. But this judge was obviously one of the judges that scored it favorable for Diaz, which
yeah. And then Paulie avenged that, obviously that unfair decision in the rematch, right? And he beat Juan Diaz handily
by even a wider decision.
Yeah. I mean, we put a story out last night on Facebook and through our website. You know, when a fight is this good, I know a lot of people want to just say, well, you know what, but you know, at the end of the day, it was still a great fight. It was this, it was that, but and you know they're clamoring for the trilogy or whatever. But what if neither one of these fighters, maybe not even Chocolatito, what if neither one of these fighters has that type of fight left in them?
That's yeah. That's the
And
sad
what
thing
if the
about it.
third fight takes place and something else happens? You know, anything could happen. You're not guaranteed that kind of a fight for the third fight. So to tarnish this victory or to tarnish this fight with a lopsided card like that, I don't know, man. I it doesn't sit well with me, and I'm sick and tired of it. I mean, I don't know. We keep coming back to the well, even though we kind of know, especially in Texas, what we're up against and what we're going to witness.
Yeah, I think the thing that really got to me was the fact that this is an ongoing situation that's happening in Texas. Let's be honest. Texas has got the same reputation as the UK. It's getting to the point where a lot of people aren't going to want to go. Right now, they don't really have a whole lot of choice with the pandemic going on. So you got to take whatever venues they're going to offer you and stuff. So Texas is going to be one of the things that they're going to offer.
Yeah.
But the fight was clearly a very close fight. I actually scored the fight 115, 113 for Gonzalez. I thought that 12th round was a definitive round, and I thought the 12th round he kind of shook up Estrada there for a while. So I mean,
yeah,
it's just a testament to the greatness of Chocolatito and the type of fighter that he is. A guy who's not natural for that weight. You could see the size difference between him and Estrada. But a guy, honestly, I said it before. Even though Roman threw more punches, he was evading a lot of the punches that were being thrown by Estrada by using his shoulders and rolling. He doesn't look like he's got those defensive skills, but that just shows you that Roman is a complete machine. But what really got me was just his expression after the fight. So humble. So no, I'm not going to argue about it or nothing. You know,
man, I'm telling you, brother, I got to be honest with you. I was talking to somebody about that fight last night and just thinking about it myself and watching him, the way he conducted himself, and when he put his hands in a prayer symbol and did this, and you saw the emotion in his face, he was basically holding back tears. How do you not love a fighter like that?
You gotta love him, man.
Dude, I got choked up watching him. I got choked up. I said, man, this is a guy that's, and you know, and I famously said this many times, and this is what's told to me by the boxing insiders. Man, this is a dirty sport. This is a dirty sport. This is filled with so many bad people, but it's filled with some really good people too. And I would venture to say you will not find a better person in the game of boxing than Roman Gonzalez. You just will not. I mean, I've done a little bit of research about him. You talk about his history growing up, you know, poor in Nicaragua, being taken under the wing of great Alexis Arguello, and just he fights for his family. And even in his losses, those devastating losses to Soren Visai, a lot of fighters would have just hung up the gloves for good and said no. But no, he reinvented himself. He came back. He moved up into a division, like you said, that he's not natural for. I mean, no. and how, I don't know, man. I mean, and you know, I hate to admit this myself, that over the years, I've had a lot of favorite fighters in my day. I mean, 10, 20 years ago, Kostya was my favorite fighter. As of recently, it's been Lomachenko. I like Deontay Wilder. There's I like Jaime Munguia, obviously for you know, biased reasons, and you know, Johnny Molina Jr. and all that. Huh?
Eric the Red just joined us.
Oh, Eric. Hey, Eric.
Sorry, I'm late, guys.
No problem. So, but these are the fighters that I've considered. These are the fighters that I've considered like my favorite fighters, and I kind of fell victim to forgetting about Chocolatito, like how great he was several years back.
I was thinking the same thing right now, man.
I'm like, man, I feel guilty. I feel guilty. Like if I met the man, I would, you know, I owe you an apology because I kind of wrote you off, and I didn't really understand the greatness that you exhibit until last night. I knew it in other fights, but last night just solidified how great of a fighter that person is, how great of a man he is.
Yeah, I concur on that, Mike. I mean, the thing is, I wasn't really big on Roman because I'm going to be honest with you. When you got a fighter that's being talked about that much and there's that much press behind him, and he's supposed to be this great, and he's just walking through opponents and winning titles and looked upon as the heir apparent to Floyd Mayweather as the pound for pound best fighter in the world. Right away, you got to equate an attitude, a bit of arrogance, maybe a little bit of, you know, nepotism going on that way. And then you sit down and you listen to this man and what he has to say. and everything just changes. But what was the selling point for me was his association with the great Alexis Arguello, who was one of my idols as a young man coming up and becoming a fighter. I go back to the days of when Arguello and his losses to Aaron Pryor, he never bitched and moaned about it. He took him in stride. I was in tears on the second one when he got stopped.
Even when Pryor was on the,
he was, and knowing that, because I respected the Hawk just as much, but I mean, there was something about Arguello that was so special. I'll never forget his bout against Billy Costello and his comeback.
Oh yeah.
And this was kind of like the last hurrah for Arguello. And I was not a big Billy Costello fan. And when Arguello landed that right hand and dropped him in the 4th round and put him away, I mean, I almost went to the roof of my house. That's how excited I was. So, I mean, and then a lot of people don't know, but there's one thing that Roman's never really talked about. And that's the way that we lost Arguello and what the circumstances were behind it and stuff. I know that's a pain that's still etched inside of his heart and stuff right now. And I think that's why he's fighting. He's not just fighting for his legacy. He's fighting to keep the memory of the great Alexis Arguello alive.
Yep.
No.
Eric, so obviously you see Eric's joining us a few minutes later. Hey, Eric, it looks like you got some business. How's everything going?
Well, we had a room a little bit earlier today. That's why I'm a little late. So we're kind of freed up.
Yesterday you had a few, right? Because I saw you on social media.
Yeah. Yesterday we had 4 rooms, and which is pretty awesome. But they're still smaller rooms because this COVID crap.
They're still restricting you.
6. Yeah. We only have 6 people here at any given point in time, so it sucks. But
so you're trying to maneuver around all that.
Yeah. So in the past, when we had opened up our first 6 months, I mean, we were having weekends where Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we would do 27 full rooms.
Jeez.
And now we're like 4. So I'm not knocking it. I'm glad we've got it going on right now, but it's hard right now. So, but hey, so everybody just keep us in your prayers.
So Eric, real quick, man, what did you think of the fight last night?
Okay, so you guys are gonna hate me. I worked all last night, so I went and I saw all the highlights earlier today.
Yeah.
What a fight,
dude!
Holy cow! I'm gonna end up. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna watch the whole thing, but just from what I can see, balance, man, that thing, it was back and forth. Wow.
Dude, I had to go to the bathroom by about the 4th round, and I couldn't get up from my freaking computer. I was sitting here I'm sitting here just like this. I couldn't, dude. That fight I couldn't walk away.
I had my food in front of me and my drink, and I was all prepared to start eating. I swear to God, I never sat in my chair. I never took a bite of my food. I never took a drink of my drink because I was so fixated on what was going on. And after every round, I was trying to how do I score this?
Yeah.
How do I score this? I'm trying to register because I'll be honest with you. I was favoring Estrada, but I'm going to say it again. And Mike touched it best. It's hard not to love Gonzalez. It's hard not to love everything about him, the type of person that he is. He's an ambassador of the sport. I'm gonna say that again, an ambassador of the sport, Yeah. So
well, he is. Yeah.
The score though. What was that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's boxing, bro. But I'll be honest with you. Like I said, I had myself personally. I had Gonzalez winning the fight, 115, 113. I thought the 12th round sealed it for him. He Estrada looked a little spent going into the 12th round. He tried his ass off. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking nothing away from Estrada.
Yeah.
El Gallo is one hell of a fighter, and he's a future Hall of Famer in my book. But there's something special about Gonzalez. The fact that these guys are throwing that amount of punches in the 12th round.
They threw over 2,000 punches in that fight.
He really felt old. I mean, it was ridiculous, dude. These guys are just.
I'm telling you, bro. We said it, Eric, before you came on, that we there's almost a sense of guilt that kind of just came over me after the end of that fight, and when I saw the way Chocolatito was conducted himself in the post-fight interview. I felt like, man, I should be walking around with a Roman Gonzalez t-shirt on right now. I mean, in fact,
I will be at the next fight I do if I got to make it myself. And
listen, my buddy Mike Montero from Montero Unboxing, he was at the fight. He writes for the Ring Magazine, and he does a Ring TV Digital. He said the third fight Now he has a little bit of inside information. He didn't say it was going to happen, but if this third fight is made, he said he sees it happening at the Dignity Health Sports Center in Carson, where it really belongs, and they'll sell that place out. I'm telling you,
that's what the first one was.
That's where that fight needs to be. And if that fight ends up there, if we, a 3, 4, 5 weeks time, we get the confirmation that they're going to do, they're going to obviously have to pay. They're going to have to pay Soring Vasai some step aside money because he's now the mandatory. They'll pay him some step aside money, and I think he'll happily step aside and be like, okay, well, let this fight take place, this trilogy, because as much as I think the Thai fighter is a great fighter and is maybe deserving of trying to get his titles back, man, you cannot let this marinate. This cannot be, because like we said, AJ, who knows what these guys have left after a fight like that? We can't have Soring Vasai sit on the shelf for the next 4-6 months, be rested, maybe take a smaller tune-up fight in between while these guys go another 12 rounds, throw another 2,000 punches, and then expect to have an evenly contested fight. It's just not going to happen. These guys need to fight for a third time. And this trilogy will go down in history as one of the greatest trilogies ever.
I think the differences between a trilogy like this and a trilogy, let's say like Ward Gotti or whatever, was out there and stuff, whatever that, and some of these great trilogies are out there, is that these were two high-level guys in the sport. They were both throwing accurate punches, just well scored. I mean, if you're a young boxer coming up, you want to go back and learn the things to do in boxing, go back and watch these guys and their attitudes and what they do at every moment of the round from the start to the finish. But once again, like you made a great point, Mike. We don't know what kind of Estrada and Gonzalez will be in part 3. Kind of like in Star Wars, you had Star Wars. It was a really good movie. Then you had, Empire Strikes Back. Wow, that was just set it on fire. And then Return of the Jedi with the little Ewoks kind of let you down a little bit, but it was what it was. We hope that that's not going to happen because you got to go back to the Mahoney fight with Franco. There's two guys, where Mahoney, he loses the first one. He comes back. Obviously, he's on his way to an easy victory. Bullshit happens. So you don't know how he's going to come back. Same situation with Roman Gonzalez.
Yeah. Yeah. And all we can hope for is they'll both come out of it in good order. They both looked okay after the fight, but, there's going to be some residual effect from that fight. I mean, this wasn't – neither guy was, as far as I know, was severely rocked or hurt in that fight, but it's just the accumulation. I mean, these guys threw and landed a lot of punches on each other.
And they're both high percentage knockout fighters. So these are two guys, that.
Yeah, these guys aren't feather fisted. These guys pack a punch.
Yeah, they do. And I know there was a moment in the fight through the middle rounds where it looked like Roman was maybe
wavering a little bit. Yeah, I felt that too.
But once again, I'm going to say this again. Everybody talks about the ring IQ of Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
And how he achieved 50-0. I'm going to tell you something right now, honestly. I don't think there's a boxer in boxing today that has a higher ring IQ than Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez. I'm going to tell you why. It was almost like a bait and hook thing with him. He started to go into this little bit of a shell, wasn't taking a whole lot of punches and stuff, and let Estrada use that energy, then waited and came back and started doing it. And that's when Roman, he closed out that fight exactly like he knew he needed to. It was almost like he had this pre-scripted going into it and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
let's, Eric, I don't know if you know this, but the one judge who scored at 117, 111, was just announced about an hour ago on ESPN. It came out. I saw it on ESPN anyways, that he's temporarily suspended by the WBA. The president of the WBA came out and made a statement that he's going to be placed. We've been talking about holding these judges and referees accountable. We don't know if it's just like a posturing move or if anything will ever come of it, but I think it sends a good message that at least the microscope is now going to be placed on this man, because ESPN's platform is worldwide, and people all over the world right now are probably reading that and going, and even if they didn't see that fight, they're going to maybe go back and go, hey, well, boxing, maybe they're starting to finally, after 100+ years, are finally going to maybe start trying to hold these people accountable. I mean, this is the we're living in the era, the whatever you want to call it, the age of accountability.
Replays.
Yeah. I mean, let's hold this guy accountable, man. This guy, I don't know what fight he was watching.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
But you know what, though?
That's crazy.
There was a couple situations like that.
He wasn't. He was playing on his phone or something.
on the night.
No. What it was, Eric, is it's a Texas. He was a Texas ref. They're in Texas, right? And I don't even know if he's a Texas ref, but he's obviously brought in every time. Another thing that AJ, I messaged you during the fight. I saw Raul Cayce Jr. working a fight earlier on the card, and I'm like, wait a minute,
California.
Well, he's not a bad ref. He's not a bad ref at all. But I'm thinking, why is Cayce Jr. working this fight? He worked the fight with the guy, right? The guy Mini, right? When he lost the fight to the he broke his hand.
Oh, it was bad.
I mean, the minute he threw it, landed on the guy's head. I mean, immediately he pulled it, turned. I'm thinking, was he there for a specific reason? Was he brought in to maybe protect the Mexican fighter? And this is not a knock against the Mexican fighter. I mean, that little guy's tough, Mini, whatever they call him, the little mini guy or the 4'9" guy. He's tough as nails. But I'm thinking, why is a California ref being flown in to Texas? I did. You know who was conspicuously absent on this card was Lawrence Cole.
No, he was a ref. He was a judge at one of the fights.
Oh, he judged one of the fights. Okay,
one of the fights, yeah.
So maybe
it happened to be one of the ones that was just a really horrible decision. He was actually a judge on the Ammo. I believe it was the Ammo Williams fight.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean that guy's. How do you say it, man? That guy stink follows him wherever he goes.
Yeah, Lawrence Cole's horrible.
That guy could cut your grass.
We used to love the guy.
Oh, I've never liked that guy. That guy can cut the grass, and that guy will cut your grass and fuck it up.
But you know what? The
lawn would probably die.
Now this sets up an interesting thing. If for some reason, Sorensen doesn't accept the
step aside money,
or let's just be honest. Let's just say Estrada isn't really, interested in that rematch right off the bat. Maybe
he said it in the post-fight interview. He said it. He deserves the third fight. He felt that it was a close fight. He was very. No.
I'm not talking about Estrada with Gonzalez. I'm talking Estrada with Sorensen being that.
So ringside.
Yeah, Sorensen.
Yeah.
So let's switch the pendulum over, and Gonzalez and the Thai fighter. Now, I know the Thai fighter has 2 victories over Gonzalez, obviously the shocking first one and then the more shocking second one. But
that was at a lower weight.
And I'm going to tell you something right now, honestly. I mean, I saw Sorensen in his fight. Obviously, he fought against a guy that was completely out of his class. You couldn't even gauge where he was at and stuff. But there was something that I noticed with Gonzalez was the punch output. He didn't have that kind of punch output when he fought against the Thai fighter in the first fight. At that kind of punch output, with that kind of accuracy and determination against Estrada, I think he takes inside of the distance.
You know what? I tell you what, no matter where that fight takes place, if it does take place, wherever the third trilogy fight, I mean, sign me up. I'm getting tickets to that fight. I don't care what I got to do. I'm getting the best tickets I could possibly get for that fight. We all have to go cover that fight live. Yep. But I mean, how great would it be if Chocolatito does come back and then avenges and wins the trilogy against Estrada and then closes out his career with a win over Soring Vasai? I mean, at that point, just induct him into the Hall of Fame right then and there. And boxing fans and boxing royalty all over the world just need to bow down to this little man, this little 115-pound just dynamo, man. Because I don't know, man.
In a perfect world, man, and honestly, that should be the way that the final chapter in the great Roman Chocolatito's career should be written.
Yeah.
And we hope and pray that it does happen that way and stuff.
Yeah.
In a world
you talk about a fairy tale ending. Yeah. I mean, but in all too many times fairy tales don't come true. But if there is a God,
it would be. I'll be honest with you. I would be, if I was at that final fight against Sorensen, and he stops him, I would be very emotional. Only because the type of person he is and what an ambassador he is, and he's going to remain in boxing. Maybe not as a boxer, but he's going to remain passive. But the thing is, I know Roman has talked about doing what Alexis did for him, and that's taking what he's learned and taking it to the youth of Nicaragua.
To the next guy.
Oh, wow.
To carry the mantle for Nicaragua.
I feel sorry for anybody who's going to try to compete against that team in a few years once Roman gets behind the mic,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
He brings a lot to the game, man. I'm very, very proud of him. And I was very proud of his performance.
Even in defeat, I mean, he's a winner in every facet of the game. Eric, you have to go back and watch the post-fight.
Okay.
You have to go watch the post-fight interview with him in the ring. And like I said, it was a very pro Estrada crowd. 2/3 of the crowd were there for Estrada, but at the end of the fight, I mean,
I didn't even watch the whole post-fight thing. I was a little sad. I was a little sad, so I just kind of took myself out of it for a minute. And so, like I said, I didn't want to see it because I knew Roman was going to get emotional. That's how he is. Let's be honest. Roman's he's a bit of a he's a very emotional guy. You can tell.
Yeah. Just a good person, man. God-fearing man, family man.
They make the best warriors.
Yep. Oh. Hey, okay. So on the same card, we're not gonna talk too much about some of the rest of the undercard because, in my opinion, it was just they were highlight fights and they were just showcase fights, whatever. Let's talk about the women's title that took place. We'll just be brief on this because really there's really not a whole lot to say about that. But Jessica McCaskill retained her titles that she had won from Cecilia Braekhus previously, just over a year ago. She retained them with the unanimous decision. I got to be honest with you. I didn't even watch when the cards were read. I couldn't. I turned over to the Showtime fights.
Yeah.
And I was watching the Showtime fights. I couldn't watch the decision because I knew what was going to happen. I didn't know they were going to be that wide. I mean, apparently they were like just these scorecards were completely one-sided.
Yeah, they were actually Rafael Ramos was the referee. Javier Alvarez had it 98-91. Gloria Martinez Rizzo had it 99-90, and Chris Teller had it 100-99. 100-99.
100-90.
No, 100. I'm sorry, to 89. I'm sorry, 100-89. How's that even?
So that's every round plus the point deduction in the fifth round, which was absolute BS. That referee and
all those referees should be done.
Listen, the referee, not just the judge, but the referee had it out for Braekhus from round one. I don't understand. He kept warning Cecilia for holding. She wasn't holding. What she was doing is she was extending her arms and pushing McCaskill down because McCaskill had her head down and was just winging shots. And I don't blame her. I mean, McCaskill's was the shorter fighter, and she probably says, I don't want to take the back of this girl's head to the butt of my chin or my nose and blast my face into oblivion because of the way McCaskill fought. And when he took that point in the fifth round, I mean, you probably heard me all the way from where you're at, AJ. I was like, what the?
I was going to stop watching the fight at that point because I already knew what the end result was going to be.
Yeah.
But, it's unfortunate. I had two feelings at the end of this fight. One was the complete change in attitude of McCaskill, how she went from being this nice, humble girl who went through so much to being now this little ghetto bitch. And I just I'm done with her. Okay. Mm-hmm. She's short-lived in this sport. She doesn't have a whole lot of skill. She got away with so much. And I guarantee if she was fighting California or Vegas, she would have multiple points taken away from her and stuff,
Listen, she made a comment after the fight about her trainer, best trainer in the world.
Oh, God.
I said, this girl is limited. She's sloppy.
Yep.
She's got no boxing ability. She's a tough girl. I'm not going to say she's not tough. She's tough. And Braekhus said that. Braekhus had the style and has the actual boxing ability. The problem with Braekhus is this fight's 10 years too late. You take a prime Cecilia Braekhus and this Jessica McCaskill, who's in her prime, Braekhus takes her out probably before 5 rounds. No. Cecilia has 2 punches left in her arsenal that actually work. She's got a jab and a straight right.
That's it.
No infighting at all.
Nothing.
She does not know what to do when she gets inside.
How do you have 36 fights, victories, and then she's got obviously?
I put that all on Abel Sanchez and Ben Lira, who worked her corner and have been working with her for a long time. I don't understand the directions they were giving. I mean, I understand that at some point Abel kind of you saw the desperation in his face where he says, "Okay, you got to do this now, this." But from the get-go, you got to when you're fighting a shorter fighter,
you got to get the distance, man.
Not only that, and if you're going to be inside, where were the uppercuts? Where were the hooks? She was slapping punches. I mean, she literally could not fight inside. So if you're not going to be able to fight inside, and that was a good-sized ring. It wasn't like it was a small ring. She did not move and utilize that ring properly. If she would have just moved, jab, 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 and every time McCaskill came in with her head down, winging, what happened to the uppercut? I didn't see. Braekhus didn't throw an uppercut the entire 10 rounds.
I mean, her legs are completely shot to me. I mean, you can always tell when a fighter, their legs
standing straight up, and
she just honestly, I know she commented that she was going to continue. There's really no reason to continue. She's just going to end up becoming a stepping stone for another girl coming up. Now, as for Miss Casco, I know there's talk about her possibly fighting in a rematch against Katie Taylor. A fight that, I'll be honest with you, could have went to McCaskill. I think Katie Taylor's another one that's been a bit fortunate over the years and stuff. As far as her fighting Clarissa Shields' fat ass can't get down to 140 something.
No way.
Pounds. Never gonna happen. You know, you have to cut half her body off. It's not gonna happen. But that's about what I want to talk about this fight. Honestly, I mean, because I think it was one of those things where I wanted to I wish that fight actually wasn't even on the card, so we could have got Estrada and Gonzalez a little earlier, and these poor guys are fighting at almost 10 p.m.
Yeah.
So what you guys are saying is don't watch that fight.
No, don't waste your time.
Okay. All right. No problem.
Yeah. So okay. So, I'm sorry, Cecilia. She's had a great career right off into the sunset. I don't know what else is left to prove. McCaskill, if she does drop down to make that fight with Katie Taylor, as much as I think Katie Taylor, I'm not going to say Katie Taylor's protected because Katie Taylor's fighting regularly.
Yeah.
Katie Taylor takes her to school. Taylor takes
I think she does in the next one. But my only knock on Katie Taylor is she has been given some favorable decisions. She's come back and avenge him, like the one against Delphine. She did come back and avenge that. But I'm going to go back to it again. Katie Taylor just, if she was facing an Amanda Serrano, it'd be Katie Taylor would get the beating of her life because of the fact that, she just takes too many punches, way too many punches. For a girl that supposedly has a boxing experience that she has, like McCaskill, these two guys would just be bludgeoning each other. So is it a fight I really want to see? No, not really, because I'm not really all that interested in women's boxing right now.
Yeah.
Ever since Ann Wolf, and Amanda Serrano, which I think Amanda Serrano fought this week, but I haven't heard anything about her decision or anything yet. So, but why don't we move on to some good fighting? Why don't we talk about the best fighter at 168 pounds? And I'm not talking about the pound-for-pound king in the world, Canelo Alvarez. Who is it, Mike?
168 pounds?
Yeah.
David Benavidez. I mean, I got to be honest. I'm a little bit mixed on the result last night. I think he started uncharacteristically slow in this fight. Yeah. He gave away the first round. Ellis won the first round, but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he's just so supremely confident in his ability to close the distance and close the show when he wants to, that he was allowing himself to get hit a little bit more than usual. Do you agree? Or was that just me?
I'm gonna tell you right now, honestly, there was a tactic that I used to do where I would let myself get hit sometimes just to make the fight in my mind competitive and kind of put yourself in a situation. I think David was looking for rounds. I think David wanted a competitive fight. I think David knew that if he went in there and just blasted this guy, it wasn't going to really sit well with the fans. Fans are looking for wars no matter who you're fighting against. And don't get me wrong, Ronald Ellis is a tough guy. He's not a guy who's a pushover in any way, shape, or form, against any other 168 pounder. This is a guy who I think would beat guys like John Ryder and amongst other people and stuff. But David Benavidez showed, going towards the end. I mean, there was a point in the 10th round and then going to the 11th round. I was like, you got to stop this fight. This kid's going to get killed. I mean, the referee knew it. At some point, the corner needed to say something. I know they kept telling the kid, we're going to give you another round. It turned into another round, another round. Benavidez wasn't even putting his full power in there. He was just hitting him he was just shoe shining him. That's all he was doing. David could have really hurt this guy last night if he wanted to. That's how much confidence and talent David Benavidez has.
Yep. Yeah. What Eric, did you get a chance to watch any of the highlights on that fight? Well, nope, not yet. AJ, we didn't even tell the results of the fight. So, I mean, how'd the fight end? So David Benavidez.
TKO in the 11th round. It was just a matter of time. You knew going to the 11th round that Ellis was on, he was being looked at real closely by the referee. David comes in and it was just a barrage of punches. I mean, and at some point, David started to get a little frustrated. He was like, okay, if the ref's not going to stop this fight, then I'm going to give him a reason. And that's when he started landing some really heavy punches, and the ref stepped in immediately to stop the fight. No argument from Ellis whatsoever. A little bit, but, that's boxing posture. But David he's just so strong. I mean, I look at the other people in the 168 pounds. I'll be honest with you. Callum Smith doesn't get out of 3 rounds with David Benavidez.
With David Benavidez, I think David Benavidez didn't really have any ill feeling towards Ellis. He doesn't like Caleb Plant, and Caleb Plant lately with some of the things he's been saying. In fact, just prior to the fight, he made a comment, and it was all over boxing scene where he said, well, Benavidez is fighting my sparring partner. So what does that say? Okay, first off, the fact that you would even disparage a sparring partner. Okay. What's a sparring partner? Okay, Canelo also has used Ellis as a sparring partner. But Canelo would never say that. Did Canelo say that about your Jamal? He's just my sparring partner. The fact that Caleb Plant would even utter those words shows that this guy has a lot to learn when it comes to boxing etiquette and the unwritten rules of boxing. You don't just my sparring partner, or come on, like to diminish the man's ability or his. And if he's just, was he trying to indicate that he's not a good fighter? Well, if he's not a good fighter, why are you using my sparring partner? So that you have an easy camp, so that you can look great in sparring? It doesn't make any sense. The best fighters in the world use the best sparring partners in the world.
I remember,
iron sharpens iron. It's not just in boxing; it's in most sports. Yeah.
I remember some time ago, I saw a video that was circulating around YouTube that involved Caleb Plant in a real life situation. He had gotten into an argument with a guy. They were going to fight on the street. Guy pulls a knife out, and Caleb hightails it. I'm going to tell you something right now. That same result's going to happen the moment. If I'll be honest with you, I don't think the fight ever happens, because as delusional as Caleb Plant is, he's not suicidal, and he knows David Benavidez has extreme disdain for Caleb.
Well, like I said, the more he talks, the more he's just making it worse for himself.
Oh yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, the thing is that Plant's eventually going to have to fight somebody. Okay, his number one mandatory as of right now is David Benavidez. Is he going to fight Benavidez? Probably not. He's going to find every way possible to kind of stretch it out, and he's hoping that maybe this Canelo fight will happen with Benavidez. But the bottom line is Plant's getting older too, and he's one of these guys that are just being like put into the. But let's be honest, real true people who know boxing don't have Plant in the top 5.
No,
when it goes to 168 pounds. Okay, I think very little. I said this in day one, that I thought that Callum Smith was completely overrated. He was an Eddie Hearn UK hype job, and Canelo proved it. Let's be honest. He got his ass kicked by a little guy. Okay, Plant's not as big as
Callum Smith,
or Benavidez. And I'll tell you now, honestly, Canelo's another one who has disdain for Plant. So Plant's got a hard choice here. Do I drop down to 160? Or do I go take a run to 175 and look like I'm hightailing for these guys? Because Benavidez is going to chase him to the moon.
No, I agree. And like I said, I think, something I was talking to Neil today, and we were talking a little bit about the Benavidez fight. And I said to myself, I think Benavidez has the ability and the toughness. He probably could have taken Ellis out a lot sooner. But like I said, he started slow. He allowed himself to be hit a lot. He put his foot on the gas when he wanted to, and then took his foot off the accelerator and went defensive at times. Maybe, AJ, and you've talked about this before, maybe his strategy was to look a little bit vulnerable.
Yeah,
because if he
absolutely
was devastating, then even more so. Maybe based on that performance, it was a dominating performance. Don't get me wrong. He won almost every round. Didn't win the first round, but every other round there, you could make a case that Benavidez won every round. I don't know what the judges' scorecards were at the time of the stoppage. I never even saw that. But did he? I'm
sure Benavidez was well ahead, but
yeah,
it kind of reminded me of like what happened in the Ammo Williams-Dugan fight. Ammo Williams, he was a guy that, comes with all this hype, talking about nobody wants to fight him and stuff. Well, I guarantee you, there's a long list coming out right now based off of this last performance. He's another one that fit that mold, afterwards when you tell a fighter, experienced veteran guy, easy work. No, it wasn't easy work. You were probably close to down on the cards early in the fight. The guy was the short notice. I don't know it was a step up for you, but
that whole easy work. It's like, it's like, guys, boxers out there, you're not Floyd Mayweather. Okay, that
not even Floyd Mayweather had easy work.
But Floyd Mayweather, that was what I'm saying was was his trademark. That was his phrase. Easy work. All work is easy work. Okay, but there were times when Floyd can make it look easy, right? Yeah. But these guys are not Floyd Mayweather. That mold broke a long time ago. They'll never be Floyd Mayweather. It doesn't matter how you feel about Floyd or not. Floyd proved it in the ring. Yeah. These guys need to stop it. The Teofimos, the Ammo Williams, these guys that just want to talk, Clarissa Shields, they just want to talk. And now Jessica McCaskill want to talk themselves into relevance. It doesn't happen that way. You have to fight the fights first, and then the vernacular will follow. It doesn't go the other way around. You don't see the cart before the horse, so to speak. There's a progression in things. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
You're building a house. You put the foundation down first. You don't just start building and go, oh shit, we forgot to put the slab down. Tear it down. You have to. There's a progression in everything in life. Boxing too. So
yeah, and I think and Eric, once you go back and you watch the Benavidez fight, I think Mike, you touched.
I'm watching it right now. Actually, I'm watching it as we speak. So
I tell you, Benavidez, like I said, I mean, he's a guy who's just kind of a freak of nature.
And you're right. That first round was, he just kind of.
Yeah, he just allowed himself to be punched, and he just kind of moved a little bit. He didn't really. I thought, but then again, maybe he's like, okay, let me see what this guy's got. Now I know what I can do. So.
Look at. Let's be honest. We don't even have to get it out of the horse's mouth from his brother Jose. David doesn't come off to me as a guy who's like a Canelo, who's a gym rat. He's just got natural ability, and he's got street smarts. He's just a tough
Benavidez.
Yeah. So he's not a guy. So let's be honest. His last fight was in August of 2020, and it wasn't, so now he's back. David was eating the menudo and eating the tacos and everything.
Well, here's the thing about David. The one thing I did like that he relocated from Phoenix to Seattle. He lives in Seattle now with his wife, and I think he has a small child, or maybe one or two small children.
Kind of got away from that element a little bit.
Yeah, because I know a little. I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I know a couple things about. I know some fighters from the Phoenix area, and I know that there was some. When Jose, his brother, got shot, they weren't just random things that happened. There was a little bit of something going on, and Phoenix is a beautiful part of the country, Phoenix, Arizona, but it's also pretty rough side of the country too. A lot of people don't know it.
He's up in Seattle. Benavidez trains out of Seattle.
He's up in Seattle now. Yeah. And obviously when he lives in Seattle, but he probably comes down here to LA. He was training up in Big Bear. Smart. So, and he said after the fight, he said the conditioning up there, he could have went another 10 rounds. He was not winded at all. So he's doing the right things, but it's not the training aspect that could have been the downfall. What he got derailed earlier in his career because he was in Phoenix, because Phoenix and the whole Phoenix area, South Phoenix, and then Scottsdale, and it's a very, very heavily party college town atmosphere. He's probably doing things he shouldn't have been doing out there, clubbing like he shouldn't have been, and ingesting this or ingesting
some of the worst hangovers I've ever had in my life. Dude, came on Mill Street,
Mill Avenue or Mill Road or whatever it's called.
Boy. Hey, Mike is telling the absolute truth, but I'll say this.
But he did the right thing by relocating up to Seattle,
and that says a lot, So yeah. I think the media.
Kid's only 24 years old.
Well, it shows a maturity. It does.
Right, yeah. And the thing is, I think at some point the media's gotta give him that pass card. They got to stop burning this kid. Every time there's an interview or there's a discussion with him, they bring up the fact that he lost his title at the scales. I'm not going to say why. They come up, they always have to reveal the guy's dirt rather than talk about, we're so fortunate to have such a young, talented, powerful, impressionable person like David Benavidez to be, who honestly is the only one a threat to Canelo Alvarez at 168 pounds.
Yeah, he's the only threat. And he's, if Canelo is 1, Benavidez is 1A, and then you could skip 2, and then maybe 3, you put a Demetrius Andrade, maybe Billy Joe Saunders down there 4. There's really not anybody else at 168.
Is Demetrius Andrade campaigning now at 168 pounds fully?
No, I'm sorry. No, 160. I'm sorry.
Oh. Yeah, I saw, talking about this, funny you should bring that up. I saw they were talking about Demetrius Andre's next fight. It was exactly who I said he was going to fight against.
Liam Williams, Liam Williams.
That
fight's
been
signed. Yeah.
I knew it was going to happen.
Happening in May, right? May 19th or something like that. Or
I'm telling you, man, I'm getting good at this stuff, dude. I knew that shit was going to happen. But I'm going to tell you honestly, it should be a good night for Andrade. I'm not overly impressed with it, but he's still a bit of an enigma to me. Even though the guy's been heavily publicized by the Zone and by Ed here, you don't really know what he's capable of. And I'll be honest with you, based on what happened to Josh Warrington and his fight against Lara, to me, Andre's showing way too much confidence for a guy who really doesn't do one thing in boxing really well. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have extreme speed. He doesn't have tremendous power.
No.
He's not the hardest person to hit. He doesn't throw punches in volumes. He's not fleet of foot. So he's kind of built up this image in his head that might just come crashing down at the hands of Williams.
Yeah, and here's a fighter. I think you could run the gamut. You could go from straw weight, minimum weight, all the way up to heavyweight, and he's probably the least recognizable champion
by choice.
By choice and by far. Nobody knows Demetrius Andrade, and here's a guy that's held the belt for a few years now. He's an undefeated fighter. He's held the belt. He should have all the, he's kind of how do I say it, bro? I'm going to try to say this without in trying to be PC, I guess. He's not ghetto at all.
No.
Demetrius Andre. In fact, he's a little bit Keith Thurman-esque, where he's a little bit eccentric, and you could tell that when you see him out at fights and the way he dresses and the way he conducts himself, he's really not your typical inner city.
I hear he's a musician on the side too. You know, he's a guy that.
Well, I could see that. I could see that he's somebody that maybe is into alternative style music or just an alternative style.
Probably a great guy. I hear he's a good guy. You know,
when he was working one of his own cards a few weeks ago. Maybe like a month and a half ago when he was working one of the cars, he was there as a guest announcer. He was actually doing a great job, and he's got the gift of gab. The words flow out of his mouth. He's very eloquent. He's a good speaker, and he's funny. He's kind of funny. He cracks jokes and stuff, and like people can insult him, and he just kind of takes it in jest and then fires back. I'm thinking this guy should be a household name, but he's not, like you said, and it's not because he doesn't have the ability or the personality. It's the opponent choice. We might never know how good Demetrius Andre could be if he doesn't fight the Canelos or the Charlos or the other guys at 160. Not Canelo, because Canelo's moved on, but even maybe the Jaime Munguias, the Charlos, just the tougher guys in and around 160. We just might never know.
Eric, you're going to say something. Go ahead and say it. What were you going to say?
Oh no, I was just sorry. No, my computer keeps freezing up, guys. Sorry, I'm here at work. I'm way far away from the modem, so you guys are going in and out. So
no, not a problem. But I'm just gonna elaborate like what Mike was saying was that it is kind of sad that Demetrius isn't a household name. He's very impressionable. I saw recently, he was talking to I can't remember the fighter that he was talking to at the time, and they ran into Bud Crawford, and right away he started, messing with Bud and stuff. He's got that attitude. But I mean, fighting guys like Luke Kessler, Selecki, these, guys like Antanes Fox. I mean,
he was signed to fight over a year ago. He was supposed to fight Billy Joe Saunders, and then Billy Joe tested dirty, and the fight was.
But there was no effort. But the thing that bothered me about that, I'll be honest with you.
There was no effort to reschedule that fight.
I didn't see any effort from Demetrius Andre to want to get that fight going again, where Billy Joe seemed like the one who really wanted the fight more than Demetrius Andre to me. And honestly, that's going to make you kind of look bad because honestly, Billy Joe, I think, is ran from a lot of people. He's not really the guy who's going to jump in there. Obviously, he's got his date coming up with Canelo, which would be the end of Billy Joe. Be like that.
I think a lot of these fighters, guys, brothers. I think these guys are all they're just playing the Canelo sweepstakes. They're just moving around and doing everything.
Like the Pacquiao thing with Bud
until they get that fight with Canelo, and they make that life-changing money, and then they ride up into the sunset.
Let's be honest. You got Bud Crawford. I'm just going to use Bud as an example. You got Bud Crawford back there talking to his manager, and he's got his advisors over here. And he goes, hey, man, listen, we got to do whatever it takes, but don't put me in the ring with Regis Prograis, okay? I don't want to fight that little pit bull, okay? Because I know he's probably going to beat my ass, and I ain't going to make no money on it. It ain't going to be worth it. Give me Manny, because at least if Manny knocks me out, I got knocked out by a Hall of Famer. I get knocked out by Regis Prograis, who got his ass kicked by Josh Taylor, who might get his ass kicked by Ramirez. And then they all get their ass kicked by Chon Cepeda. So, what does it go down to? But the thing is, it's sad about Demetrius Andre. And honestly, it's at the point right now where he has to take a big risk. Now, Liam Williams, to me, is not what I would consider a massive risk. He's a guy who's coming in, he's not undefeated. He's 23-2. Let's be honest. The guy lost. He was stopped in the 9th round by Liam Smith. And then he went to the 12th round with Liam Smith in another decision loss. This is a guy in Liam Smith. If people aren't aware, that's Callum Smith's brother. He's a victim to Jaime Munguia, a victim to Canelo Alvarez, amongst others. This doesn't sit well with me that a guy like this is getting this opportunity. Where are everybody else at 160 pounds? Where, and it's going to lead into what we're going to talk about at the very end. What happened to the great middleweights? What happened to the fighters when the middleweight division, it was the best against the best? When you guys like Heath Schuler fighting against Tommy Hearns, marvelous Marvin Hagler, we're going to talk about in just a bit, John Mugabe, Mustafa Hamshaw. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. He fought the best that was put in front of him. Now these guys, they invent these fighters, they raise them up so they can knock them down. And it's bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Boxing's got to get away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, since we got some time here, why don't we talk about a huge loss in the world of boxing. A person who me and all my brothers, I mean, we all looked up, whether you loved him, what you couldn't hate him.
You had
to either fear him or you just had a disdain for him because he was so good. But that was a guy out of Bronx, Massachusetts, a guy named the Marvelous
Brockton, Massachusetts.
Yep, Marvelous Marvin Hagler. You know, we'll just kind of talk briefly here like this. So, Mike, why don't you give me your greatest memory of Marvelous Marvin Hagler?
Well, okay, well, as we wrote a quick story, a quick write about it yesterday. We posted it. It was all over social media. He died suddenly and tragically, unexpectedly. Apparently had chest pains and was experiencing difficulty in breathing. Gets rushed to the hospital. A few hours later, it's announced that he passes away. Details still pending. My greatest memory of Marvin Hagler, probably, greatest memory would probably be his fight with Roberto Duran. I was rooting for Duran in that fight. I mean, I remember vividly watching that fight with Dad and Uncle Rick and all this. We were at Uncle Rick's house in Pomona, the one that was by the railroad tracks, watching that fight. And I just remember rooting for Duran, but thinking to myself, man, this Hagler is just a machine. This is just a guy. The close second to that was when he fought Mugabe, and I really thought Mugabe would be the guy to go on there and do the work and put a number on him because he was just devastating and knocking people out. And Hagler stopped him. What was it? The sixth round, 8th round, whatever.
No, he stopped Mugabe in the 11th round.
11th round. Okay.
That was back when they were fighting 15-round fights.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those are things that I remember. And I can't say I was always rooting for Marvin Hagler. And it wasn't his fault. It was just his opponent selection. I was a huge John the Beast Mugabe fan. I loved Duran ever since he was a welterweight, ever since he was at 140. That's about the time, when I started getting interest in boxing, a young kid. But the one fight that still sticks in my craw, and still to this day, I remember that fight vividly, is when he fought and lost that decision to Sugar Ray Leonard.
Yeah.
Which was absolute, total, utter bullshit. The fight was supposed to be a 15-round fight. I think this was the first high-profile fight that was ever fought at 12 rounds. And I actually went on social media yesterday to see if Sugar Ray Leonard had posted anything, because he should have been the first person to post something. And I didn't see anything yesterday. Maybe
I'm sure Sugar Ray will.
Because he walked away from boxing after that fight, a fight that he felt he justly deserved. And I felt he won the fight. I felt it was a close fight only because of the crowd reaction and the way Leonard fought the fight. He actually instructed his corner to pound the canvas when there was, 10 seconds left or 15 seconds, whatever it was, so that he could flurry, and try to just steal the round, so to speak. That one still sticks into my brain. I'm thinking to myself, this is an injustice was done, and he walked away from the boxing after that. He never stepped in a ring again.
Eric, why don't you go and give us your fondest memory?
Yeah, so greatest first round ever. Hagler Hearns.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Go back and watch that first round again.
Well, I mean, I look at. I know. Common boxing knowledge says that, but I'm going to disagree. The best round I've ever seen in boxing was round 9. Gotti.
No. I said greatest first round.
Oh yeah.
Greatest first round.
Well, in boxing circles, they still call it the greatest round ever, and it was a great round.
No.
But the greatest
first round.
Yeah.
To me, that was just. I mean, just an absolute, just beautiful.
Oh my God, that was. I mean,
it was like bam, boom. It was amazing. It was amazing.
And Tommy landed some big right hands, some counters off the ropes, and Marvin
both of them, man.
Marvin took them and just kept coming forward, man.
They were just eating leather.
If you guys don't mind, I'll close out the show with my impression of the career of Marvelous Marvin Hagler, who I look at the career of Marvin Nathaniel Hagler, and I look at all of the things that he did in boxing. One of the longest reigning middleweight champions of all time. This is a guy who lost 2 fights earlier in his career to Bobby Watts and Willie the Worm Monroe. Could have walked away, and at the time he was undefeated, but that was Philly fighters. Philly fighters were tough. You go down to the Blue Horizon, what they call the pit of hell. But I think some of the most memorable situations I knew about Marvin Hagler was he never turned his back, whether he was facing Caveman Lee, the incredibly nasty Mustafa Hamshaw,
Yeah.
Tony Simpson, the powerhouse from the UK. Wilfred Scipion, probably one of the most underrated middleweights of all time. The great Roberto Duran. The only fighter who ever registered a knockdown in Marvin's entire career, Juan Domenico Roldan.
Oh, from Argentina.
But it was the fight going in against Mugabe that I think Hagler started to lose the love for the sport. He had made comments going into the Mugabe fight. He was starting to see the dirty side of boxing more and more. Now, this is a guy who came up through the trenches. Mugabe was heavily touted, a guy who, won his titles, a guy who basically made Earl Hargrove, who came into the fight 25-0, 25 knockout, shit his pants before he even knocked him out in the first round. The point is, the referee did everything in his, and don't get me wrong, taking nothing away from John Mugabe. John Mugabe fought one hell of a fight. But I think that Hagler saw that there was an end to what he had done in all these years. And then the bad taste that he got in the Sugar Ray Leonard fight. But I think where Hagler was more angry, it wasn't the fact that the judges gave the fight to Sugar Ray. It was the fact that a fighter of Sugar Ray's level and a fighter coming up there should have been a short night work for the great Marvelous One. And I think that's when he said to himself, you know what? I've seen my better days. I'm not going to be one of those guys who are just going to be a stepping stone for other fighters and stuff. And
gatekeeper,
So when he walked away from the sport, we lost. We had a huge void there. And we try to find guys for years and years and years. We try to find guys to be that next one. In some ways, let's be honest, you had guys like James Toney, who came in there. And then you had the great Bernard Hopkins, love him or hate him. Bernard stood his ground and in some ways remind me of Marvin Hagler. Not in technique, but just in longevity, and a guy who lost early fights. I mean, he was a guy who lost his pro debut to a Philly fighter.
Yeah.
And then we look at the fighters of today, like Gennady Golovkin. And no knock on Gennady Golovkin, but I'm going to be honest. In the middleweights today, and there are some fighters that are getting big, okay? I would take, I know there's going to be a lot of people say, well, no, that, things change like this. What Hagler was able to do in the ring and the level of competition in which he fought against, once again, I'm going to say it again, Mugabe, Hearns, Hamshaw, Rodan, Scipion, these guys, K-Man Lee, these guys are all living legends. These guys are all guys that were the kind of guys that you just walk 6 blocks around just so that you walk in front of his house. We live in the world now of guys that the Gennady Golovkins, the Jamel Charlos. I think that's why Hagler didn't really stay real close with boxing.
He didn't. He didn't.
He kind of distanced himself because it was a letdown for him to see
fighters
and what they do. You know what I'm saying? It was a very big letdown to him because he knew how hard he had to climb up. He never cared where the fight was fought. He never cared about the money. He didn't care about the glove size. He didn't care about the venue. He didn't care about any of the perks. All Hagler cared about was that you showed up and the fight and that first fucking bell. That's all he cared about. So in my life, I want to say thank you to the family, respectfully to the family of Marvelous Marvin Hagler and stuff. It's a huge loss to this great fighter and stuff like this. And boxing, especially in the middleweight division, we hope that maybe some of the young guns that are coming up, I know I've said it before, guys like Munguia, amongst others, because I'll tell you right now, we always talk about filling the shoes of people currently, like maybe a Canelo Alvarez or something, or Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
Let's take a little bit step back a little bit more and let's try to fill the shoes of the great one, Marvelous Marvin Hagler.
Yeah, very well said, bro. Very well said. Like I just want to just elaborate a little bit on what you said about the letdown that Hagler probably felt. You're right. He walked away from boxing. I mean, he obviously had some disdain for that last fight and then the way it was scored, but he probably looked at these middleweights today, like the Charlos and some of these guys that just want to, the Andres and these guys that just want to talk and don't actually fight the fights. And, and like you said, he came up in an era where it wasn't even thought of. I mean, the best fought the best back in those eras. And that's where,
well, I think, one of the things that really got me was when Hagler lost those fights earlier, and they were almost back to back. When he lost to Bobby Watson, he lost to Willie the Worm Monroe. Back then, you took a loss. You know what you did? You went home, cleaned your gloves, washed your trunks, took maybe a couple of days off, got back in the gym, and got ready for the next one. Today, now you need to have every excuse in the book. You need a therapist for 3 months. You need this, you need that in order to figure out where am I at. Let me tell you something right now.
Psychotherapy and hypnotherapy and all this stuff. It's like
we don't have the mold that was created by guys like Marvelous Marvin Hagler, the great Roberto Duran. Alexis Arguello, Salvador Sanchez, Bobby Chacon, Lupi Pintor, these guys, it's gone. So in order to really bring, but I will say one thing. I saw a glimmer, a combination between the great Arguello, Lupi Pintor, Bobby Chacon, maybe even a little bit of Roberto Duran in there, and Ramon Chacalito Gonzalez. We do have. I mean, I think I'm gonna start.
He's an old school fighter, man. He's a throwback fighter, and that's a term that gets
with Inoue and some other guys. You know what I'm saying? So we do. You know, got Jojo Diaz. I know he's had his problems, but you know, Jojo's a throwback fighter.
He'll fight anybody.
Jojo would have been perfect in the air of the Ruben Olivares and the Arturo Frias. They would have been great in back those. Could you picture Jojo Diaz, Tony the Tiger Baltazar fight back in those days?
Yeah. Fireworks, man. Fireworks. Yeah.
It would just make them better. You know what I mean? Fighting up like that just makes you better. I mean, it just does. Yeah, you take a loss. You take a loss here. You take whatever. If you're getting better.
I'll tell you what I'm really gonna miss about Hagler. It's not going to be his wars in the ring. It's not going to be the way that he dominated the middleweight division. It's not going to be the way that this is the man who basically started at middleweight and ended at middleweight. You know, he never really thought about going anywhere else. He just said, hey, I'm going to be the big kid on this block. But it was that infectious half smirk smile. Out from Hagler. After you would have a conversation with him, he kind of give you this look. Because even to the day, probably before he died, Hagler was born a tough guy. He died a tough guy.
Yep.
There's a lot of guys in Hollywood who play tough guys, but in reality, they're pussies. Well, Hagler was the real deal.
Yeah, he was a real tough guy. Yeah.
Bless you, Marvin Hagler.
Yeah, yeah. God bless you, man. Rest in peace, rest in power, whatever they say these days. His family, man, that was a tough one. That was a gut punch yesterday when we saw that. I thought it was a joke when I first saw that. I said somebody's playing the joke, but it's not April 1st yet.
Well, yeah, especially being on such a high, getting ready for what we knew was going to be.
I know we were getting ready for such an exciting night, and all of a sudden we found that out. I was like,
there he goes, guys.
Yeah,
Hagler. Yeah. Just a physical specimen too for that era too. You know,
5'9" at 5'9.5", not the biggest guy, but like I said, you take the middleweight division with
a guy that can fight. I mean, honestly, he was the first true ambidextrous high level fighter. He could fight as good lefty as he could righty.
I could knock.
He was that good. Yeah, he was that good.
Yeah.
He was that good. And a lot of credit goes to, you know, a lot of the Petronellis get overlooked a lot when they talk about the great trainers in history. You know, they talk about the Manny Stewarts, and these days they're talking about the, you know, the Reynosos or whoever they want to talk about. You know, people forget a lot about those Petronellis, man. Those Italians from Brockton, Massachusetts knew how to train a fighter, man.
Well, you know, the great thing about Goody and his brother was the fact that with the Petronellis and stuff is that Marvin, that mold that was created as a champion, he never left his trainers.
He stayed with them.
Same guys. He didn't bounce from trainer to trainer, manager. He stayed with the same ones his entire career. He worked out the same gym his entire career. You know, he didn't want to.
Like I said, bro,
back in those days, bro, there was no such thing as pound for pound best because nobody gave a shit. It was just everybody was best in their division, and that's the problem right now. People are overlooking their divisions to just be considered the best in boxing. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, hey guys, listen, let's do okay. We're obviously not going to talk about this, but when we come back in a couple of days to do a preview of this weekend's fights, we do have some great fights coming up this weekend as well. We have the rematch, Dillian White versus Povetkin. That's taking place on DAZN coming from the UK, right? Saturday early.
Yes. Saturday.
Later on that night on DAZN, I believe Maurice Hooker and Virgil Ortiz are getting ready to square up. And there's another one or two other fights happening this weekend. So we've got some homework to do between now and Tuesday.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see that Hooker Ortiz. It's really
I am too. It's a very intriguing fight.
And I'm gonna tell you now, I know a lot of people started leaning towards Virgil Ortiz at the beginning, but I'm gonna tell you right now, they're gonna make a big mistake if you overlook Maurice Hooker Jr., man. I think Hooker's gonna bring a lot to this game, and it could be a wake-up call to Virgil Ortiz.
Well, this is going to be a true test. I mean, nothing against Sammy Vargas, but Sammy Vargas was on the, you know, was, I want to say he's maybe seen his better days. He was a victim of a couple of tough losses. Virgil Ortiz is daring to be great. You got to love the kid. You got to love Virgil Ortiz. There's nothing to dislike about the kid. I mean, he's a tough guy. He's humble. If you've ever heard an interview or seen an interview with the kid, he's
great kid. He's a great kid, man.
He's so humble, and he's just a diehard. He's a bit of a throwback guy, you know, not flashy. He's not all out there on social media running his mouth. He's just doing it in the ring where it should be done. You know,
absolutely. But I'm gonna tell you now, if
looking forward to that fight.
I don't want to touch too much on it because I know we're going over. But if Virgil Ortiz does win this fight and wins it in convincing fashion, he catapults himself into a situation where there's going to be some lucrative matchups down there, and how heavily avoided he's going to be. But we'll talk about that on Tuesday.
On Tuesday. Yeah. Eric, so what's going on the rest of the day? You got any more bookings today, or you kind of just?
No, not as of yet. So if you're in the Gresham
Morgan
area, anywhere, you know, if you're in Vancouver, British Columbia, or Vancouver, Washington, we're only 30 minutes away. So
I'll say this, bro. I envy you because you get to experience something tonight that I got to experience yesterday for the first time. Enjoy watching the Gonzalez Estrada.
Yeah, watch that.
I'm about to watch it again right now. I got to take some notes for our thing. But man, you know,
I'm looking forward to it. About the undercards, there was a Lopez.
I'll be honest with you. If you told me I couldn't watch another fight for the rest of the year, I had to stop at Estrada Gonzalez, I'm good with it.
Yeah. That was a great fight, man. That was a great fight. It was a great fight, and you're gonna enjoy it.
I saw the highlights, but you know, I almost don't want to score this one because I saw what you guys were saying. You know, 114, and 115.
No, but I want to see what you come back with it because you know.
Yeah, score it. Score the fight. Yeah, score the fight. Yeah.
I'm usually pretty good at that. So.
All right, fellas. So I guess that's it. That was a good show. That was a good time.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you guys. Be safe. Have a good rest of the day, everybody. Don't forget to join us this coming Tuesday, 5:00 on the West Coast. Don't forget, set your clocks forward. I already did, but don't forget, it seems like we're on a little bit earlier today. That's because we moved the clocks forward. So everybody just tune in. Yeah, we're supposed to. They call it spring forward, or they go. So you you lose an hour of sleep in the morning. So
basically.
We'll be back on Tuesday at 5:00 on the West Coast, 8:00 Eastern. For all of us at Enter the Ring, Mighty Mike,
AJ Rage,
and Eric the Red.
You guys have a good night, man. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. Take care.
Rest in peace, Marvin Hagler.
Rest in peace, Marvin Hagler.
Rest in peace.